Number 9. Fake friend. At the beginning of 2022, 31-year-old Matthew Hardy was sentenced to serve 9 years behind bars for what he did to 22-year-old OnlyFans creator Abby Furness. In 2019, Abby got her first taste of Matthew's wrath after spending a few weeks in Ibiza with her boyfriend and some other close friends. They had a blast, posting fun pictures and videos about it online. From one group photo, Matthew saw Abby and was hooked at first sight. About a month or so after the vacation, the woman started getting messages on her phone from who she thought was one of the girls she'd met on her travels. The chat seemed normal at the start. The girl asked Abby questions about her boyfriend and where she got her swimsuit, but soon took a turn when she accused Abby of sleeping with another man in Ibiza. In reality, Matthew was the one sending the strange messages. For months, he stalked her social media and got lists of everyone close to Abby. He even reached out to her boyfriend several times claiming she cheated on him. Hardy also told the girl's family members that she was sleeping with her uncle. At this point, Abby knew she had a stalker and told her loved ones who were understanding but still taken aback. Matthew made fake profiles of Abby and used them to talk to people she knew. One of his victims was her former boss, who personally reached out to Abby after growing suspicious of the chats. The messages between the fake Abby and the man included nude photos and inappropriate language. Months later, after a completely different stalker showed up at her parents' house with a bottle of alcohol and a note, Abby discovered Matthew's identity during an Instagram Live. He had sent her a message on Facebook admitting to everything he'd done, but when she tried to talk to him, she was blocked. Eventually, Abby reported everything to the police. They discovered that Hardy had a lengthy criminal background and had been arrested many times for stalking over 60 women. Finally, he had to pay for what he'd done to them. While Matthew was sent to jail, Abby still lives in fear, unsure if another stalker is waiting behind the corner. Number 8. London Night Stalker. In 2009, London was hit by a horrifying trail of sexual assaults in the small neighborhood of Walthamstow. Many women were victimized by a criminal dubbed the E17 Night Stalker. No one knew who the suspect was until May 30th, 2009, when a woman was killed. Typically, the Night Stalker would beat up the girls, assault them, and then leave them for dead. But tragically, 35-year-old Michelle Samarawira was murdered during the attack. Her body was left discarded in an empty playground. With this development, detectives were able to unveil the rapist. They had CCTV photos of their suspect, but couldn't quite make out who it was, so they petitioned the public for help. Soon, they were contacted by the stalker's old boss, who identified him as Aman Vyas. Aman started his reign of terror when he was 24. His first victim was a 59-year-old who he attacked and brutalized in her own home. Apparently, after raping her, Aman said sorry and ran away. The terror only escalated from there. When Aman realized the police were onto him and the walls were closing in, he escaped to India. In 2011, authorities in the country arrested him and held him in custody for years until the UK could extradite him. In 2020, he was finally punished and given a minimum prison sentence of 37 years. Number 7. Phantom of the Opera. On March 2, 2022, 42-year-old William Warrington left a mental facility and immediately went to his parents' house and killed them. In his everyday life, William put on a mask and seemed like he was keeping it together. He worked as a successful property developer, but he was hiding sinister inner thoughts. He frequently used cannabis to cope with his deteriorating mental health. William had been diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic, and the cracks were starting to show. Soon he developed an unhealthy obsession with the hit musical Phantom of the Opera. For hours on end, he'd watch clips of the movie over and over until the character started speaking to him. He truly believed they were telling him to kill his parents. Strangely enough, one of the early warning signs for William appeared after he started stalking famous actress Kate Moss. He left her strange items outside a German studio she was working in. Some of them included a cake, a World War I helmet, sunflowers, and a Phantom of the Opera mask. For this, Kate filed a restraining order against William. In 2020, when the COVID lockdown began, he lashed out violently against his mom. His siblings were terrified and looked for help. William was told not to return home or else he'd face the consequences, but he didn't listen. His mother Valerie refused to give up on her precious son and let him come home. After another outburst in 2021, this time involving a knife, William was sent to a mental facility. Months after being admitted, he escaped during a short period of escorted leave. From here, the madman killed both his parents in a bloodbath. William remains in custody at another treatment hospital, where he will stay until further notice. Number 6. The Watcher. Netflix recently aired an original show called The Watcher, based on a very real stalking case out of Westfield, New Jersey. After buying their dream home, Derek and Maria Broaddus and their family were excited for a new chapter in life. Everything seemed like a movie until about a month after moving in. The couple received an anonymous letter on August 21, 2019. The note had some deeply disturbing messages. It spoke about young blood playing in the basement and how the family wouldn't be able to hear their kids scream from upstairs. Frightened, they immediately went to law enforcement, but police found nothing out of the ordinary going on. A few more strange instances happened, like alarms going off randomly over the next few months. And then everything seemed to quiet down, and it seemed like life was finally moving forward. In December 2021, their false sense of security was once again shattered when a carbon monoxide alarm was triggered. Then, in January, an emergency call sent EMS to their property, but they found nothing of concern. Over the time that they lived in the home, over 60 calls were made to police. The owners before the Broadduses, the Woods, said that they also got a strange letter after moving in, but didn't think much of it. The strange Watcher case remains unsolved, leaving so many questions unanswered. The Woods lived at the property for 23 years. So does that mean someone's been watching for that long? Who is the Watcher, and what do they want? What would you do if you moved into a house and started receiving strange letters like this? Would you stay or move out? Tell us in the comments, and hit that subscribe button while you're at it. Number 5. Obsession. Jacqueline Addis made a profile on a popular dating website called Luxy. The service was originally made for millionaires to find love, but Addis's love was very one-sided. The skincare company CEO that she set her sights on was not reciprocating her feelings one bit. At first, the two seemed into each other. They spoke online for a few days before deciding to meet up and go on a date. Sometimes things don't work out though, and the man told Jacqueline that he wasn't interested in going any further. And here's where things took a turn for the worse. Jacqueline began obsessively texting the CEO and stalking him. At times, she'd send hundreds of texts a day. The messages included deranged threats like, "I'd wear your fascia in the top of your skull, in your hands and feet." Another message said she'd bathe in the man's blood. In 2017, she parked her car outside his house. Then a year later, while he wasn't home, he saw from security footage that she was inside his house. He immediately contacted the authorities, who showed up to find Jacqueline taking a bath inside. The officers also discovered a butcher knife in her vehicle. In May 2018, Jacqueline Addis was taken into custody after sending nearly 159,000 strange messages. She was held in jail until being transported to a mental facility to receive treatment. The CEO apparently dropped charges against her in light of this. Number 4. Janae Gagnier. OnlyFans creator Janae Gagnier was the target of a dangerous stalker. The man in question was 34-year-old Kevin Accordo. Online, Janae went by the persona Miss Mercedes Moore to protect her real identity. In 2021, the woman's father went to her apartment when he feared something was wrong. The door was locked, and Janae hadn't been answering any of his calls for days, so he kicked the door down. In front of him was every parent's worst nightmare. He found his daughter's dead body. All around her, there were torn-up clothes, and upstairs, the father found Accordo with a knife stuck inside him. According to the dad, he was still alive at the time, but was bleeding out. Kevin had been obsessed with Janae for a while. He'd apparently stalked her social media for some time, but never had a personal relationship with the victim until this point. He broke into her home before strangling the poor woman to death. Not long after, he took his own life, likely unable to live with what he'd done. Number 3. Drone. 43-year-old Mary Dunham was going about life as usual in early 2020. She was driving home from work one day when she started hearing a strange buzzing noise. It didn't take long for her to spot a drone flying above her vehicle. The device was following her every move. Whenever she stopped, so did the drone. If she made a turn, the drone did too. It started to scare her, so Mary called the police, unsure what to do in this situation. The operator instructed her to pull over, and Mary followed directions. She waited in a gas station's parking lot until a police officer could get there. Later, in an interview, she admitted that she didn't want to go home in case the device was following her with malicious intent. When a cop arrived, the drone was still hovering nearby. He said that this was a very strange case and very unusual considering the area in Maine. Since authorities couldn't pinpoint who was operating the device, they couldn't do anything. Mary was forced to go home and wait for answers. The following day, it reappeared and tailed her car again while Mary drove to see her brother. At this point, the police contacted the Federal Aviation Administration and filed a report. It's unclear if the person piloting the drone was ever captured or not, but cases like this are more common than you'd think. As technology advances, it's likely that stalking instances utilizing drones and other devices will be on the rise as well. Number 2. Taylor Swift. After her recent album release, it's once again been made apparent that Taylor Swift is one of the biggest stars in the world. With all this attention, there's bound to be a few unsavory individuals looking up at Taylor's shining persona. In November 2016, Frank Andrew Hoover violated a restraining order Taylor had against him. The man had apparently been stalking her for months. He even went as far as sending emails to Scott Swift, Taylor's dad. Finally, he was arrested for breaking the order. Years later in 2018, Frank was back to his old habits and sending the Swift family more messages. Only this time, the emails contained dangerous death threats. He called the Swifts an evil family of devils, and he escalated with more unsavory remarks. For this, he was given 10 years of monitored probation. During the first year of his sentence, he'll have to be tracked using a GPS. If he fails to follow through on these conditions and stay at least 1 mile away from the Swifts at all times, he'll receive jail time. Despite news outlets picking up on Frank Hoover's case, Taylor Swift has never mentioned it a single time in public. Number 1. Pete Davidson. Pete Davidson rose to fame after starring on Saturday Night Live and dating drop-dead gorgeous stars like Ariana Grande and Kim Kardashian. Michelle Moutretti was served a protection order against Davidson after trespassing on his Staten Island property. She snuck into his home in 2021 through an unlocked side entrance, then sat down at the man's dining table as if nothing was wrong. Luckily, Pete wasn't home at the time, but one of his loved ones was. This person called the police on Michelle, who was arrested and charged with burglary, stalking, and criminal trespassing. All of this happened after Michelle made bogus claims saying she and Davidson were married. She even told the press that they'd gone into business together and created a production company. In response to this, Pete said that he had no clue who Michelle was and that everything was a lie. Thanks for watching. What would you do if a stalker was watching your every move and the police couldn't find them? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe. See you next time on Bad Badger.